My name's Herb Tam. I'm the curator and director of exhibitions. And today is Monday, June 23rd, I believe, yes. Um, and we're here with Daniel Tsang and
Tsang.
Zhang. Okay.
Yeah,
Actually, could you introduce yourself and,
yeah,
your all the names you have and
yeah.
we kind of what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Daniel Tsang, and that's how they pronounce it when I was growing up. And I grew up in Hong Kong. I was born there, but I later became a librarian and a bibliographer, which means I selected books for different libraries on the East Coast and in Philadelphia and on the West Coast in California, University of California, Irvine.
Mm. And actually, do you have a Chinese name?
Yes, Zhang Zhan Dun.
Hmm.
And Dun, I think, means steel,
Mm.
kind of strong with steel, kind of strong as steel.
Mm.
And Zhan is just a middle character for all people in my generation, in
I see.
the same, my brothers were all Zhang Zhan something, yeah.
Mm. Uh, is there a story of like how you got these names, both the Chinese and also
I
Daniel?
think they went by, I don't know about Daniel, but I think the Chinese name came from from my father probably, and I think probably from my grandparents, because of my biggest brother, my eldest brother, was named that with one of the Zheng Zhen something, but
Mm.
so I don't know. By the time I was born, the grandparents already died, so I never met them. Yeah.
Mm. And so you were born in Hong Kong. Could you could you say what year you were born?
49.
Okay. And uh, were your parents also born in Hong Kong, or did they
No,
move there?
my father was born in a province in Guangdong province, but a district that was in Santao, but he spoke Hakka.
Mm.
It was a Hakka area. And my mother was born in Seattle, Washington. And she went to Hong Kong in the 30s. She graduated from U of Washington as a major in English Lit
Mm.
in 1933, I think. And 34, she went to Asia because her sister was already in, her biggest sister was already in southern China,
Mm.
and or in yeah, and then she went to Kunming, I think, first to stay with one of the sisters,
Mm.
and then she had a big family of six women were in the
Mm.
house in the her family, five other sisters from my mother,
Mm.
and so she went around there and then ended up in Hong Kong, and she actually was quite interesting. I found that out later because I found some letters. I visited my relatives, my brother especially, and my cousin from Seattle gave me this stack of letters from my mom, she wrote in English in 1939 and 1940s in the middle of the war. In the 39 she was in Hong Kong, and then in 40s before the or at the beginning of maybe the war had not broken out yet, and in Hong Kong, and then she went to China after the Japanese occupied Hong Kong.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was quite interesting. There's some description in there of the process, how they got to China,
Mm.
across the border. They walked actually. It must have
Mm.
taken a month or something. I'm not sure how long it took. A few weeks at least, back to the ancestral home,
Wow.
my father's ancestral home. My mother is also is Chiuzhao, uh,
Mm.
Santao or Xiuzhao, yeah.
Mm.
But she spoke very little Chinese because she was born in America. And by
Mm.
the time she came to America, she was basically quite fluent in English. And she got a bachelor's degree from U of Washington, Seattle.
Mm.
And all her sisters got degrees here, and they went to, even one sister went to medical school in Michigan even, yeah.
Oh.
My father ended up. He was at a missionary school in his village in Gityang, Guangdong province, and Guangdong province. Yeah, it was in Santao district, I guess. But but anyway, he went to mission school there, a Presbyterian mission, I think, English Presbyterian, and then somehow he got into medical school at Hong Kong U. Medical school in Hong Kong, even now, is a bachelor's degree. It's you get a MBBS, Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, and it's an undergrad degree. It's not a graduate degree. So he was, but that was, before the war, before Second World War. So I don't know how he entered it. Was able to enter it. His English must have been very good, because this was I mean, Sun Yat-sen went to the same school also, and the medical school in Hong Kong U before it was renamed, I think. But so anyway, he graduated right before World War II, and I think at the same time as some famous writers in Hong Kong. In the war years, they had gone to Hong Kong U in the 30s, late 30s, and so when he graduated, he became a medical officer for the Hong Kong colonial government, and so when the Japanese invaded, he ended up working for them.
For the Japanese?
No,
Okay.
for the British.
Okay.
And and my mother was lucky because she's American, but Chinese American, but the Japanese didn't know because all the Americans were supposed to go into camps. They were incarcerated in Stanley detention camp, and they were prisoner of war camp, but they were not soldiers. They were civilians. But somehow I don't know how she did that, but maybe they didn't know she was an American. They probably didn't check very carefully when they took over. And other people protected her, and she was able to live with my father in medical quarters in Hong Kong, next to a hospital, I believe. And so she stayed there for a year, but I think for some reason, at some point, they decided to go to China. And after the Japanese invaded in 41, Christmas Day, 41, I think. And 42, at the end of it, I think, 42 or 43, they started to go to China. Because at one point, I think they needed doctors. The government, the Japanese occupation authorities need medical authorities because there's a lot of diseases and all that. So I don't think he was kicked out, but my mother didn't like staying there because there was probably incidents with Japanese soldiers that were not nice to her, and so she was happy to get out of Hong Kong, and but also at that same time the authorities had an evacuation order for local Chinese in Hong Kong to get them out of Hong Kong because they couldn't feed them. There was not enough money or enough supplies. And people were burning paper and burning documents from the Public Records Office, from the government offices. I'm not sure exactly if maybe they hadn't gone into the Public Records Office, but the government documents were being burned because people needed fuel.
Wow.
And, so it was quite atrocious then, and bad situation for locals that stayed behind, and of course all the discrimination. And so my mother and father and my brother was born in 1940 already. My oldest brother was Reginald, has a British name, and his English name was Reginald Tsang. And so he was 1 year old, 1.5 years old when they decided to go to China.
I see.
So that was before I was
quite a
born.
story.
I was
Yeah.
born. My life parallels the foundation of People's Republic because I was born the same month as October.
October.
Yeah. And I've done some research on that period. I'm interested in declassified documents or government documents relating to Hong Kong. And I can get to that later. I can talk to it about it now, but I can. Do you want me to talk about it later?
Um,
It's not really about my family, but
yeah, maybe I'll bring it up later.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so, how many brothers and sisters? You said you have brothers?
Yeah,
How many?
two other brothers, and then a sister died in
Uh,
China. Basically, every 3 years there was a birth. So
mm,
my brother was born, and then 43 there was a girl was born,
mm,
but she died very young.
mm,
So nobody I didn't even know about it until found a letter from my mother or from my aunt in Seattle,
mm.
back and forth. I think the first time somebody mentioned the sister, so nobody had told me. When I was born, I didn't. I was born in '49,
Hmm.
so '46 was my second brother. So it was every 3 years there was a child,
Hmm.
but they ended up with just three boys. Yeah,
I see. And you said your mom had studied literature at
English lit. Yeah, in
English
York,
lit,
Washington, Seattle.
and then why did she go back to China again or
She
Hong
didn't go
Kong
back.
again?
She went. Just she never been there.
I see. I see.
Yeah,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah. She.
So what was the reason why she went back?
I asked her once, and she did. I turned on a tape recorder,
Yeah.
and she said she didn't want. She was a nobody. Why interview me? So that's why you interview people who are, they think they're nobody, but they actually is very interesting.
Mm.
Then she's not a nobody, of course, but so she told me that right before she stopped talking to the tape recorder, it was an analog tape, but she said went for. She just said for adventure. So
Uh-huh.
and she was reading books like Lin Yu Tang and
Mm.
Good Earth, and is it the Good Earth? Yeah,
Mm.
and that period in 1930 something, and yeah, I think by the time she went to China, the book had been published, or when she was in China, 36 by that time. There was all these missionary stories, I think, that
Mm.
so she was kind of a missionary. I mean, she wasn't a missionary. She wasn't sent by a church. She just went on her own, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then how did she meet your dad?
Huh.
How did your dad and your mom meet?
Oh yeah, I think there was L.A. In L.A. There's a cousin of ours, of mine actually, and he said the family knew him. He knew somebody in. He knew my mother's. He knew my mother's family in America, and so recommended. He knew both, maybe,
Mm.
or maybe he just knew my father's family and recommended. He's my mother's relative actually,
Mm.
and so he recommended. He became an accountant in L.A.
Mm.
and eventually he got they got together in Hong Kong. They met in Hong Kong, yeah, and married in 39,
I see.
1939, yeah, in
1939.
Hong Kong.
Mm. Um, where they basically raised you in Hong Kong, right?
They raised me. I never went to Asia. I mean to not Asia, to China.
Yeah.
I didn't until later, until when I was a teenager. Yeah, when I
Mm.
was young, I didn't go. Although my
Mm.
brother grew up in China partly during the war years,
Mm.
during the occupation in Hong Kong, and then he left. But my other brother was born in '46, so it was after the World War II.
Mm.
So he was in the same situation. They had already gone back to Hong Kong and were living in Hong Kong. My parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, I'm curious about like just growing up, what your kind of perception or understanding of China was. That
Well,
was, and also just like your relationship to
was
Chineseness, I guess, too.
Oh yeah. There was the schools couldn't teach about anything until after '49. They couldn't teach any. There was nothing. We didn't know anything about what was happening in China.
Mm.
It was all not talked about.
Mm.
And so I became a bit curious when I was growing up. I thought my parents were very anti-communist, but so I was, as a child I was more rebellious,
Mm.
and so as a teenager I would go see communist films from China.
Mm.
There's still, I mean, the British didn't ban everything, and so they actually had theaters that were run by pro-Beijing people,
Mm.
and a lot of actually my relatives were actually it's about Chinese families. They're actually very broad range.
Yeah.
You could have relatives that are very pro-communist or communist, and then you have them some who are very anti. So it's same in my extended family.
Mm.
There were relatives that were much more pro-government in Beijing, and so there were actually theaters in Hong Kong that showed films.
Mm.
And I think there was one celebrating some bridge that maybe the Russians paid for across some river. I can't remember much. Some bridge that was built, so it's glorifying China.
Mm.
And I saw that probably in the 50s or 60s, probably 60s, when I was a teenager in Hong
Mm.
Kong. So it was like long before Hong Kong, China took back Hong Kong. Yeah.
I see. So you had a curiosity about.
Yeah, I was out of curiosity, and of course they say don't do it. Don't. I never told my parents I went snuck off to see these films, but they let me. I was pretty free,
Mm.
uh, because they were busy. They didn't have
Mm.
time to take care to control me. Basically,
Mm.
yeah, I think.
Well, what were you kind of doing as a kid? Like, what were you interested in? Um, in like sort of beyond school, what were you interested in?
I think my father gave me a camera, so I was taking
Mm.
pictures and stuff. So I used a camera, box camera,
Mm.
uh, and and that was in the picture that the picture of me at 13. I had
Right.
a still camera, and I was one of a Yashica.
Mm.
Yeah, so I recently found that actually
The camera?
after how many years? 50 years, 40
Wow.
years. I found it
Wow.
next to my bed. I didn't look in a box, and it was right next to my bed. And there was another camera there, and it was a more expensive camera, a Rolleiflex,
Mm.
and that is probably a few $1,000s. But Yashica is it's just a few $100s, I think. Yeah.
What would you take pictures of?
uh, I think just friends uh, and scenery in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Mm.
But all this was black and white, so.
Mm.
And then I became interested in developing. When I got to the U.S., I actually developed a lot of my own film. Uh,
Mm.
I had chemicals and an enlarger. I bought a kind of Italian enlarger called Durst, and it only fit 35 millimeter film. So I couldn't develop the box camera pictures.
Mm.
By that time, I had a 35 millimeter camera.
Mm.
So I took pictures with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I still haven't. I have too much stuff, so I haven't dug out pictures from before, because now it's easier just to look at digital stuff,
Yeah.
because you can search it by somehow it knows what it is. If I say put in cello, it will come up with a cello that I played in at school, and me with posing with a cello, but I haven't digitized all my earlier things because there's too much.
Mm. Um, and just in terms of like your, I guess, family upbringing, like how would you describe how your parents,
There were-
raised you?
I think my father was very strict.
Mm.
I never, he never. You hear this about Chinese families; they never say "I love you,"
Yeah.
and so he was very strict, and he would. I don't remember being beaten, but I wonder if I was beaten.
Hmm.
At school, they caned people. In my Anglican school, the headmaster would go around with a Eurasian headmaster. He was very actually friendly otherwise, but he would, if you violated the discipline at school, he would whack you, yeah, with his cane.
Mm.
He carried a cane with him.
Mm.
So people were kind of afraid of violating rules. And I was actually a disciplinarian. I was a captain of the class, maybe a few times, they say. And in these reunions now, some people say they hated me because I was enforcing the rules, because they were kind of, in like primary 1 or primary 2, they were, which is like first grade or second grade. Not first grade, oh yeah, maybe it is first grade. Yes, similar to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the classmates he was talking at one time. We went on a reunion back to Guangzhou, and my classmates were remembering old days, and he said he used to hate me. So I don't remember that actually.
Yeah.
So.
And you said your mom, she didn't really speak Chinese. right?
She spoke
Cantonese.
some. She spoke Chiuzhao,
Mm.
uh, and the so, but he didn't. But she spoke mostly to me in English. So
Mm.
my English is quite good. At school, they, my report cards always say I spoke English, excellent English. English. And when I went back to these reunions, the first question they always ask me is, "How come your English is so good?" And I said, "Because of my mother." That's all.
Mm.
Yeah. But it's a kind of weird existence because she taught me American English. You know, schedule and schedule is
Mm.
pronounced differently, the
Mm.
British and the
Mm.
English. And she would make fun of the British, the pronunciation. But then in school, of course, it was British English. And so somehow it coexisted. The spelling, of course, was different. Harbor and
Mm.
labor and all that.
Right.
Yeah, the spelling is different. But somehow we managed. But I realized that my classmates, now it's considered a very good school. You know, it was then too, but now it's considered a elite school of English. But actually, I realized many of my classmates, the English is very poor.
Mm.
Even though they were my classmates and I thought they knew a lot of English. I interviewed one of them more recently, and he said, "Can we do it in Cantonese?" I said, "Can we do it in English?" Because I thought I would put it on the radio program, and it's in English, you know, and otherwise I would have to, you know,
Right.
dub it or something.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, my English, I don't speak that much." I said, "You went to Harvard for a master's degree," and he's a legislator. He's one of the
Huh.
people in LegCo, Hong Kong LegCo,
Mm.
Legislative Council, and he finally did it in English. He was just being pretending he didn't know English when of course he knew English. Yeah, but he said mostly when people interview him, he talks. You know, the media in Hong Kong speaks Cantonese.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So my
Um.
Cantonese, I'm not Cantonese. I'm actually Jiuzhao
Yeah.
or Hakka. But actually, I don't speak Hakka either. So mainly, as a kid, I spoke Jiuzhao. But then in school, I picked up Cantonese. I don't know how I learned it.
Huh.
There's no classes, you
Huh.
know, for Cantonese. I don't know. People,
Just picking it up from like conversations with friends
yeah.
or something.
And and then for 50 years, I lived in America, and then I went back during the protests. I went back and lived there, and I had got a Fulbright
Mm.
research grant
Mm.
right before right after the umbrella movement in 2007. Umbrella movement was for 2014. I
Mm.
went in 2017 to 18 to research preserving preserving protest literature,
Oh.
and my Chinese in my Cantonese improved quite a bit,
Right.
and I even gave a talk in Cantonese at a community center. They moved all this furniture in this to the street, and then they had people come
Mm.
in a working class neighborhood of Hong Kong,
Mm.
and I gave a talk about archiving,
Mm.
and a lot of people in the community. That was my best, and that was during my Fulbright. Yeah,
Wow.
and so gave it all in Cantonese, and although some words I would say use archive, you know, and some of the people there went to university, so they knew what that meant.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think there were slides and stuff, so people could follow through. But my slides were in English, yeah.
I see. Um.
But so I'm now an
Cool.
advocate of Cantonese. I actually,
Hmm.
even though I don't think I was born speaking Cantonese. Maybe when I grew up, I just spoke more. I mean,
Hmm.
of course, in Hong Kong, you have to speak Cantonese because when you go out in the streets, people speak Cantonese to you. And my
Yeah.
classmates all spoke Cantonese to me. In the, I asked them more recently, and they said that in the breaks they never spoke English.
Mm.
They only in school, in class. I mean, this is breaks during school in the playground,
Yeah.
or whatever. They revert back to their native language, and even Eurasians who were there spoke Cantonese. They spoke very good English and Cantonese. I have lots of friends who are my classmates were Pakistani or Indian, and they all spoke perfect Cantonese.
Wow.
And one became a judge even,
Wow.
and he took me to I wanted to use the law library at the High Court, and his office is in the High Court. He was an appellate judge, and he said he walked to the counter and said, "呢個係我個朋友. This is my friend. 幫佢 or something."
Hmm.
Actually, a lot of stuff ended up being digitized already, so I didn't actually need the stuff there.
Hmm.
But
Are
he's Pakistani, and
Hmm.
he's head of the Muslim Society now,
Wow.
after he retired from the judiciary.
Yeah. Are you worried about Cantonese, kind of dying out? Like, is that a concern for you or
Yeah, I'm
other
definitely,
people?
yeah.
Yeah.
I try to support it, and every time in Hong Kong I speak, and when I now know all these I know people in, of course, people from China all ask if you speak Chinese, and to me, Chinese is Cantonese, not Mandarin.
Mm, mm,
So it's a distinction,
mm,
But they don't understand because and also they don't think Cantonese is they think it's just a spoken language and a dialect. And one time the worst thing was there was a filmmaker from New Zealand who made a film about a family, Chinese family in New Zealand, and the curator, this white woman from Orange County who had picked the film for some reason, she was a curator for the festival, Orange Newport Beach Film Festival, and so she was there at the Q&A, and they had some people, not the director, who was a woman from New Zealand, but some of the producer or or whatever was some of the cast were there, and she said, uh, I said, why didn't you use more Cantonese in the film? Because
mm.
the family was Cantonese actually in New Zealand, and he said, well, Cantonese is a gutter language.
Really?
Yeah, so I, I was writing a review and also for my radio show and for the OC Weekly, and so I put that in, and
Mm,
people wrote back, thanking me for
mm,
defending Cantonese,
mm,
and people from New Zealand even they somehow saw it, so
mm, mm,
I think there's a lot of misconception about Cantonese,
mm,
bec- because she said she took Mandarin, and that's what my teacher told me.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that's it's the same. Although I think in Southeast Asia there's more appreciation. I've talked to teachers of Vietnamese, and they really are much more appreciative of Cantonese,
Mm,
because
mm,
a lot of Vietnamese spoke Cantonese and turned into and Cantonese, Chinese what do you call it, uh, Chinese Vietnamese,
mm,
Sino-Vietnamese
mm,
people. A lot of them know Cantonese or Chiu Zhao or something, Teochew they call it, yeah.
mm, mm,
And so there's more appreciation for the different languages, whereas Mandarin became a dominant, was picked by the communists actually, think, and it actually lost by a few votes only. Cantonese could have been the dominant language, but in the actual vote, Cantonese lost out.
mm,
But a lot of the leaders of China and of Vietnam, they knew Cantonese. Ho Chi Minh knew Cantonese, Saya
mm,
San knew Cantonese.
mm,
Yeah,
mm.
so it could have won out.
Right. Okay, we're gonna
And it's a written language. It's not just a spoken.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of move on to, I guess, you coming to America, and was the reason why you immigrated, and maybe that had to do with
Yeah,
your
I didn't
schooling as
immigrate.
well.
I mean, to me, because I was already American, so it's kind of reverse process from other people typical people that come to
Mm,
America. I was already American,
mm,
so I didn't have to go through immigration department.
mm,
Uh, I think I came here because I wanted to go to higher education, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go to England because of the way the British treated people in Hong Kong. I didn't really like it. Although actually I spent one semester when I was an undergrad in America in London. I had a London semester after I came to America.
mm,
I went to London for a UN semester, and we were supposed to stay at. Uh, no, I went to DC for a UN semester, and then I went to London for a London semester, and we were supposed to. The program was through Drew University, I think, in New Jersey, but we were supposed to go to LSE, London School of Economics, and lodge there, but the school had shut down because of protests against the American war in Vietnam, and so so the school wasn't open,
mm,
and so we just stayed in a hotel, and we had a professor for the class, and he was a Labour MP, member of Parliament, and he came to the hotel to teach the classes, and then I would go visit him in the House of Parliament, and he was really a backbencher because he didn't have an office, so he just took all his mail and put it on a bench and started reading it when I was visiting him. Yeah, so I would freely go into the Parliament to visit. Yeah, so that was my first time I met officials from a colonial government, and they were still over in control of Hong Kong, and I used the Public Records Office in London. Uh, I think later it became the National Archives, yeah,
Okay.
of UK, yeah.
I see.
So I looked up old documents on governors of Hong Kong. I don't have the thesis. I wrote one and I don't know. I have no idea where it is. It's probably in the university somewhere. Yeah.
So you
Oh, there is. It is in the university. Somebody digitized it because one time I became a librarian, and later, much later, and in grad school I went to library school. But at some point I met a Filipino librarian who was working at the undergrad school. Oh yeah, but that was later. Later I wrote about the future of Hong Kong as my undergrad thesis. Because they were at that time there was 71 I graduated from undergrad at University of Redlands in California, and nobody was talking about much about the future then. So I started thinking about it because in '82 I think they started talking more and having discussions with China and British, deciding the fate of Hong Kong without talking to the Hong Kong people, but mostly. But I was kind of early. I actually was thinking about it in undergrad. What would
Oh.
happen in the future?
Huh. And your undergraduate was at.
The University of Redlands in California, Redlands, California.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
a kind of one reason I went there was my brother was there, but it's also a American Baptist university, not very religious, but I knew the missionaries from American Baptist Convention. They're the liberal version of Baptists. The Southern Baptists are very conservative, but the American Baptists are more liberal, and they ended up opposing the Vietnam War. But my family knew all the people there, because he helped out as a doctor. He would informally help the missionaries, and so I grew up with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were friends of the family.
By this point, had you come out to your family or to friends, etc.?
I had friends in my school. It was a boys' school, so it was very conducive to male friendship. And I think I told this to. Do you know this film director who did this Suk Suk, this Uncle
No.
film that's very popular now from Hong Kong about two older guys, and he once interviewed me about the situation in Hong Kong. He had asked me to audition for the film, but I didn't. It won lots of awards. It's in Chinese it's called Suk Suk, about uncles, and it was set in the 60s or 70s, but I was talking about the 60s earlier time. So I didn't go for the audition because I didn't think I would do well in a film. But I mean, I'd never been in a film, so he wanted me to play the character. But there were two characters in the film. They were gay, they were growing old. And so they talk about being closeted in Hong Kong. But I wasn't closeted in that sense. I thought I was very gay I personally did not feel closeted, although I knew not to be very open. And the way you can hide it in open sight is my classmates were able to put their hand around each other when they walk around, their arm over each other, and I did that with my boyfriend in school, and nobody thought anything of it. So you could pass in daylight,
I see.
It was totally walking as if you were out in public, but you were passing actually.
Yeah.
So tapok towel, they call it. Means
Mm.
put your hand over the shoulder.
Mm.
Yeah, put your arm over the shoulder.
Mm.
And so I was able to do that. And so I told this film director that was the situation in Hong Kong, in my school. And it was totally different from the film where he portrayed these older guys who have totally closeted and met
Mm.
each other when they were really old.
Mm.
And I was 13 or something.
Mm.
So I was able to express. And then I went, like I said in the talk, I went, my mother took me to the American Library, which is kind of a propaganda arm of the U.S. consulate, but it had gay stories
Mm.
in the library that I was able to check out
Mm. And
as a
your mom
teenager.
worked there, right?
Huh?
And you said your mom worked there at that
No, no,
library?
he
Or no?
worked at the, no, he worked at the girls' school.
Mm.
I worked at the boys. I mean, I studied at the boys' school, but he worked at the equivalent girls' school
Mm.
in Hong Kong as
I
a
see.
librarian. Yeah,
I see. Yeah, and so then what did you study at? What was your major?
international relations
Okay.
in undergrad and basically the same thing in graduate school.
Yeah.
They call it world politics in
Mm.
Michigan.
And this was
So,
like what, the late 60s or
yeah, late 60s for undergrad, and then 71 I went to Michigan.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and can you talk about at this time, just the I guess political atmosphere
It was
in America?
because it was anti-war. 70s, U.S. hadn't pulled out of Vietnam yet, and at Michigan it was much more political. In Ann Arbor, in Ann Arbor, they had actually dug a hole in the ground to simulate the bombing and mining of Haiphong Harbor
Mm.
in and and Cambodia also,
Mm.
and so the students were really anti-war, and so that's how by then I was already very anti-U.S. imperialism, and so. But before that, in this 1970, I was in that UN semester, and we were based at Drew University in New Jersey. But that was when a lottery was enacted for the draft.
Mm.
Before that, they had exemptions for college students, but people raised a correct point that it was a class distinction, right? If you could afford to go to college, then you could avoid the military draft. So they
Mm.
got rid of the exemptions, but then in the year, maybe that was the second time I was eligible for a military draft. They had a lottery. The second time they had a lottery,
Mm.
and so I I got a high number, so I didn't have to go.
Mm.
I think Bill Clinton, he's a year older than me, but he also got a high. He had tried to avoid the draft by going to the Nationals, the reserves, the National Guard, and National Guard. But he didn't get in, I think.
Mm.
And then he was up for the draft my year, and he also got a high number. So if you get a high number, they never reach you because they pick the first 100 or 200,
Mm.
and it's based on your birthday. So there's 365, 366,
Mm.
days in a year, and so it's based on your birthday. So they picked my birthday didn't roll up until 300 something,
I see.
so I never got reached. So I didn't have to go fight in Vietnam, and I was against Vietnam War because I didn't see why I should go kill other Asians. It didn't make sense to me.
Mm.
And I think if I had got picked, I would have gone to Canada as a
Mm.
draft dodger, or go
Mm.
back to Hong Kong or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So I
And-
was eligible for the draft, and in the meantime, I actually worked for when I first came to America, in the second year I came, I worked for the U.S. Post Office. They had they had you didn't have to take the test
Yeah.
was just a paper test, and it was based on your GPA.
Huh.
So if you got to over 3 something or whatever, you were automatically entered, and you could get a job at the post office.
Wow.
I didn't have
What
to.
did you do? Deliver mail or?
Yeah, in Chicago actually. My brother was living in Chicago, and it was crazy because the Polish newspapers were really heavy, and I was like, I was 17 or 18. I was 18, and it was very heavy, the baskets. So you couldn't carry it around. They had boxes, relay boxes they call it, the green postal boxes, and the best thing was they gave me a key that could open every mailbox in the country. I had better not lose it, and also, but the first experience the post office was in Chinatown in Chicago,
Hmm.
and then I took a train there and then picked it from where my brother was staying at our hospital. My brother was also a doctor. Well, he was an intern, and he stayed in hospital in South Chicago. It was used to be called Martin Luther King Drive.
Hmm.
I think, and maybe now it's still called that. And so I took a train from there to the post office. But one time it was raining, so I put a raincoat and was wearing shorts. And they sent me home. They said, you can't wear shorts in a raincoat. You look like a flasher. So the post office, my boss, sent me back home to get better dressed.
Wow.
I can imagine them if if I taken off my raincoat, they would think I was flashing. It's pretty funny, yeah. But the other experience was the Polish newspaper was very heavy, but also the dogs wouldn't let me into the gardens. There were a lot of houses with gardens and a fence, and the dogs would chase me and bark at me,
Hmm.
and so I would just stick it in the hole in the fence. And then when I went back to the post office and told them, they said, you can't do that. You
Oh.
have to deliver at a mailbox or at the door, you know. So
So how did you
they
deal with the
said,
dogs?
huh?
How did you deal with the dogs then?
You just had to deal with it. But every day was a different route, so that's why it's very
Oh.
confusing.
Oh.
Oh, every few days was a different route, I think.
Huh.
And one time I delivered to play because I was temporary. I was just a substitute.
I see.
Temporary summer postal clerk, postal delivery person. Yeah,
Hmm.
I still have the hat, but I can't wear it. My head is too big now. Yeah, that's the
So-
only uniform I got was a hat with a. At that time, the post office was part of the federal government. Now it's kind of part of a agency that,
Mhm.
it's kind of subcontracted out to a semi-government agency.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Um, and then so how did you get involved? Like, were you involved in, anti-Vietnam, like organizing work and,
Well,
uh,
Michigan was good because they had so many groups, and I would join. The first thing I joined was the Gay Liberation Front
Mhm.
and Ann Arbor, and that one, I still thought it was very white, even though the activists on campus, one activist, he ended up being the gay student services person, and he was appointed as a gay person in the student services,
Mm.
not government, but the university services for students, and he was the first one they appointed as man, and he was actually part Chinese,
Mm.
and he never actually. I knew he was Chinese, so I would talk to him about it, but he never came out until after I left
Mm.
as Chinese.
Mm.
He came out as gay first, but for some reason, I guess you would say in Hong Kong people they say Eurasian.
Uh-huh.
His name was Jim Toy. So now when he died, they say, oh, he was such a big Asian open gay in Michigan, but he wasn't. I mean, he was openly gay, but he wasn't a gay Asian. Sorry,
Yeah.
he wasn't Asian. Nobody knew he was Asian until
Interesting.
after decades after I left.
Huh.
And then when he died, they said, wow, he was the first gay Asian. The other person was later after I left was Curtis Chin,
Mm.
and he didn't know about me. I was like about 10 years before him. So
Mm.
it shows how segregated people are in those
Mm.
days. There was no internet, right?
Mm.
So he had no idea what I did when I talked to him. He had never heard of me.
You mean Curtis?
Huh?
You mean Curtis didn't have an idea who you
Curtis,
were?
yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Curtis, the author?
Curtis Chin, yeah, the writer. Yeah.
Writer, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
No, what did I say?
No, you did say that. I was
Yeah.
just confirming.
Yeah,
it.
Curtis, yeah. Curtis Chin, yeah. So because he was an undergrad, I was a graduate student. And so the undergrads have a separate life, but also we went at the same time. I was 10 years earlier than him.
Mhm.
And so I was doing all this gay stuff in grad school for the TAs, with the TAs, and they would not know about it because
Mm.
even though we were fighting for contract gay rights in the labor contract,
Mm.
and I taught a gay class, so first he wouldn't know about it because it was a temporary class. Yeah, so it's understandable he doesn't know about it.
Right. What was like the Gay Liberation Front? What was its sort of like manifesto, or what was its sort of goals?
That was the name of the Gay Liberation Front, actually all over the U.S., was after the Vietnamese National Liberation Front, the
Mm.
the pro government, the communist government name of the rebels in Vietnam. So actually, the Gay Liberation Front had a really radical perspective. They took it from the Vietnamese radicals, underground liberation front.
Mm.
So the Gay Liberation Front was named after a radical movement. Uh,
Mm.
actually, ACV, even the is it ACV
Asian Cinevision.
yeah Civil Vision in LA,
Yeah.
Asian Cinema, yeah,
Cinevision. Yeah.
Cinevision, yeah. I think that the LA one was actually three leftists started it in LA. So they find it, because they were called VC, visual communication, sorry.
Mm, yes.
It's called
Yes.
visual communication,
Yes.
sorry. And they named it VC after the communists, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but now, of course, they had to change it. When they recently did a fundraising, they decided not to really, now it's just an acronym.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Um,
They decided not to emphasize the acronym, I mean.
I see.
Now it's maybe they call it something else.
And so, what kinds of activities were you a part of as part of the Gay Liberation Front?
Activities.
Yeah.
I remember protesting because there was no recognition of any kind of gay rights, and so a colleague a classmate of mine in grad school, at that time we had no video cameras except porta packs. We were beginning to use porta packs, Sony porta packs with tape.
Mm.
And I crashed the house of the president, Robin Fleming, in Michigan, and we asked him about gay stuff, about why gay people don't have rights on campus, and something like that.
Hmm.
And he filmed, my graduate student colleague, carried the porta pack. It's very heavy, and it's like a big tape recorder, but it's video. And they eventually there was on that leaflet I showed on the gay caucus, at one of the meetings in the first gay caucus for the graduate students, there was a screening of the film I made on public access television. At the beginning of cable television, they had open access.
Right.
They had given access to anybody in the community can show films and put on a program. And so I put on my gay program, was slotted for a certain time. And so it's just a short half an hour thing. And I don't know if I digitized it yet. Maybe I did. I forget if I sent it out to be digitized. I may have the film on there.
It was a documentary.
Yeah, it's
film?
a documentary just questioning the president, why there's no support for gay rights. And, yeah.
I mean, at that time, like, what?
It was 75 or something,
75.
74 or something.
Okay, yeah. What were those, like, sort of specific rights that you were
Oh, we
kind of fighting
wanted
for?
non-discrimination. In the contract, we were asking for sexual or affectional preference. And then they freaked out. They thought it would the university management thought that we were asking for a right to have sex in the classroom. They were making all these crazy kind of red herrings, and I think the newspapers also said sex clause. In one of the student newspapers, they said Michigan Daily, I think. They said, they were fighting over sex clause. It wasn't sex clause. It was sex. It was discrimination against people's identity, basically. Yeah. So we got it, actually. We finally got it in the first contract. But it wasn't the only contract. I think there were other contracts that had gotten it in Michigan at the time. So it was in the early days, yeah. So there was no recognition of that. Of course, there was no questioning of gay marriage or anything like that. No, it wasn't raised, yeah,
Right.
at that time.
Um,
But then when President Ford came to Michigan, he had played football, a U.S. American football at school, a football player and a captain, I think, before. So he went back to Michigan to his alumni to raise his presidential campaign, and I was one of the students invited to question him, and it turns out I was part of GEO, the Graduate Employee Organization. I was part of that to represent the graduate students actually, but I ended up asking about why Ford didn't allow gay people into this country. The U.S. turns out didn't allow immigration from people with psychopathic personality, and there was Supreme Court had decided that was determined that was included homosexuals. So from 1952 to 1990, the U.S. actually banned people coming into the U.S. who were homosexuals. And I had friends who actually remember filling out the form and saying no, they were not afflicted with psychopathic personality, and they got red card, green card, sorry, and then later actually married a guy when it was allowed. But the danger now is, and that happened in the Supreme Court decision. They actually went back in the record and found out that this Canadian who had a green card but had been charged with a sodomy conviction, charged with a sex crime in U.S. that was consensual apparently, but according to the law at that time was illegal. So the Supreme Court decided that he was homosexual before he admitted in the court, in the paperwork for the citizenship. He was applying for his citizenship, and he admitted that he was homosexual before he came to America. And so in 1966, the Supreme Court ruled that even though he had arrived in America and got a green card, they could revoke it because he had lied. So that law made it illegal to lie about subsequently. To lie about, and then he found out subsequently, because he admitted he was homosexual in Canada before he came, and so, like in his teens, he was a gay person, 13 or 14, and so he got deported to Nova Scotia.
Wow.
So that case was 1966. I actually didn't know about the case. I just knew it was actually a ban on gay immigration. So I wrote to Ford, and then after I asked him that, he said he'll have his people look into it. And then the INS wrote me back, Immigration Department wrote me back half a year later in 1977, and said even though the American Psychiatric Association had determined that homosexuals don't have psychopathic personality, because it's in the law and the Congress hasn't changed it, it's still the law. So they confirmed it in the letter. They said homosexuals are still subject to psychopathic personality designation. So they wrote me the letter saying, it's still illegal to come in.
Right.
But only for immigrants, not for tourists.
I see.
Yeah.
So if you're a tourist and you were
they
homosexual,
don't
you were
ask you.
fine. Yeah.
They don't ask that. Although I suppose, I don't know if you were very blatant and wore like 3 earrings or, rainbow flag or something. I don't know about. But now, actually, in 1990, they got rid of it.
I see.
Congress abolished it.
Really? It was only as recent as 1990 they
Yeah,
abolished
so
that.
it was in effect. I wrote to them in 1977, and they still confirmed it. But so in 52 to 1990, it was illegal.
Wow.
But
Wow.
I think under Trump, the problem now is that Trump is going back and getting INS to dig up dirt on you. And so when I sued the CIA for their files on me, that was at Temple University. They one of the questions and one of the things I got back from the CIA, the ACLU helped me with my case after I filed it by myself, and they said they referred my file. They sent a question to the CIA. CIA sent a question to the INS. Say, do you have anything on this Chinese living in Philadelphia? My name and then living in Philadelphia, and the answer came back no, because I didn't go through INS. When I came
right.
out, I was already American, but I think because my Chinese last name, they thought I was a spy. So that's why they asked INS if they had anything on me. And, uh, and that's why they probably kept a file on me, because I was a Chinese. It was at the beginning, they were still, I mean, even those days, there was probably 1980s, they were still interested in 1970s, 70, yeah, I was in Philadelphia from 78 to 86 before I went to Irvine. 86, I went to Irvine and worked there for 30 years. But before that, I was in Philadelphia. So it was when I was in Philadelphia, because that's what the files say. That the files I got, a lot of it's still blacked out. And I asked for the file because of Freedom of Information Act. But when you ask for personal file, you have to ask under the Privacy Act of 1970, I think. And that's for personal files. And that law was enacted during the consequence of the Vietnam War, when the federal government used to spy on students on campus protesting, and nonprofits and stuff. And so Congress actually was quite liberal then and passed a law saying you can't do that. So the law I challenged was the law said you have a right to demonstrate, engage in First Amendment activities without the government collecting or retaining a file on you. And that applies to permanent residents as well as citizens. And so when I raised that point with the ACLU, they represented me eventually. By Christmas, I think they took over my case and represented me in court and stuff. And so I won the case, but I think because I couldn't prove her damages, personal damages, they gave the money to ACLU, about $50,000, not that much, and because they had filed a lot of briefs and all that, yeah. So they need the money, yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, I did want to focus more on the kind of activism part of your life, at least in the early days, and just can you talk about maybe we can start with like the Gay Insurgent. Talk about like the kind of editorial work you were doing and sort of how that fit in.
That magazine came out of a more tame magazine called Midwest Gay Academic Journal, and it started when I was in Philadelphia, and I had a co-editor who was a sociology graduate student, and we were both under the feeling that because we were in Midwest, it seemed the East Coast got all the attention and West Coast about activism, and nobody thought about the Midwest. So I thought I wanted to start a journal documenting homosexual research in the Midwest. And so, so we did that for a few issues, but then when I moved to Philadelphia, I got inspired by Insurgent Sociologist, which is a magazine at the time, a zine at the time. So I decided, and I was by myself then, and so he was just a friend that I had recruited, and so I changed the name to Gay Insurgent, based on this other name, Insurgent Sociologist, and I put the subtitle Gay Left Journal, and I'm sure the other people who are real, hardcore leftists dismissed it because I wasn't interested in all that debate in the left circles about. And it seemed like interminable. The debates would go on all night, and sometimes we would do that even in the Vietnam War protests, or they were forming into subgroups and discuss theory and policy and theory and action, and so I was more action person, I guess. Although of course I had some theories, and when I started that gay awareness article in '74, I had some feeling about what we should do. I didn't think Asian homosexuals should avoid each other's eyes. I thought when you walk in the street, you shouldn't avert your eyes. I had a feeling that even the gay people were afraid to meet you in the eye or acknowledge your existence because they were maybe with a white boyfriend or something. And so, I'm sorry. So I thought that was at that time was a very demarcation. There was a lot of people that were putting white people as gods, and so they were attracted to them, and vice versa. I suppose the white person probably thought something special about the Asian person.
Mm.
So at that time it was very, very stark. I remember Don Cao and I were in a bathhouse once in New York, and before we turned the corner, we heard somebody in the bathhouse in a kind of a sauna. They say, "Oh, here comes those chinks." You know,
Mm.
and so there was all this kind of separation. If you're Asian, you were not considered desirable, and you were not considered, anything worth looking at,
Mm.
because they just made all these assumptions about
Mm.
you, and so, I mean, there were sexual distinctions. You were always a bottom,
Mm.
like you were subservient.
Mm.
And Richie Fung, who was actually in the March on Washington, he made a documentary um, about rice queens basically, and
Mm.
Asians and rice queens, and they talked about that.
Mm.
And so rice queens just refer to people that are attracted to Asians. And
I
so
see.
there was a determined, at that time, a way to talk about it, yeah,
Mm.
that you were fit in certain roles. And I remember going online, and those days there was no internet, but there was the beginnings of internet. But in the early days, there was something called BBSing. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's a bulletin board systems.
Mm.
So that's when you had a phone, all you had to do was have a phone. A phone line was connected to somebody's computer at another place, and all these people called into that computer, and you could chat with somebody at that. Maybe I forget if there was a display. Forget how people chatted,
Mm.
but all the computers were linked to a phone line, so only to that hub, I guess.
see.
And there was a list of members, and you could join in and chat and meet up. And I did the first essay on this in the world, actually, about Asian Americans meeting online in those system, and it's online. You can search it, and the way to do that was the way you found people was that I documented how if you change your race, your ethnicity to white, you got more responses.
Oh, really?
I was trying to test that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think I did it, but I think I met somebody who said he was white, but then online, and then he turned out he was Asian.
Mm.
But he got a lot of more responses then. Now it's totally different. I think now it is more equal, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now what I feel is there's more ageism.
Mm.
There's more. A lot of young people are very protective. They go through. There's this GLAD thing. Gay is a gay support group. Gay. They teach teenagers to be protective of themselves, and so they're very scared of older people. They're scared of talking to people online. A lot of people tell me when I chat with them that they shake when they talk to an older person. They're afraid to talk to you, because I think they learn to be more protective of themselves. And but other people are very rude. They will say, "You're old. What are you doing online? Why are you here? Get off this site."
Really?
Yeah. And they could be Asian. They don't have to be white.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
it's just this new culture of cancel culture, I think I call it. It's when people think that you can just cancel somebody job or somebody online because you don't like that, and so it's becomes action. So it has nothing to do with policy or activism. Actually, I think part of it is because you forget gay liberation was sexual liberation, but now it becomes just a identity. To me, that's why I was raising the question about GLBTQ. I thought the whole litany of groups that join in, I think it's much better to just say queer and then include everybody instead of every year figuring out which letter to add. Because if you add things just periodically, then you can always cut off some people, like Trump is doing, cut off trans. But if you say all queer, then we're together. So, but of course, it's hard to find a name that everybody agrees on. But for me, I found the same problem. I'm even here. You listed my talk as LGBTQ, and that's not a term I use actually. And and I did the same thing when my latest article was about queer Vietnam. I have a chapter in a book on queer Southeast Asia by Rutledge. It came out last year, and my chapter was queer Vietnam, and so I had to deal with what term to use in another country also. But I thought that was more inclusive instead of putting this alphabet soup title. And the authors must have agreed because they use the word queer Vietnam, queer Southeast Asia for the whole book.
Huh.
And the editors are from Australia and Indonesia. And so that's my latest chapter. I can send you that. It was
Yeah.
mostly about social science, because when I went to Vietnam my first Fulbright was Vietnam in Hanoi. They were just beginning to talk about homosexuality in the social science NGO community, and they were getting funding to support AIDS work and stuff. So at first, of course, it's like everywhere they were doing AIDS work, and that's how it delved into it became more kind of social activism because you wanted to raise issues.
Right.
So that was the same thing in Michigan. There was a lot of AIDS work also, but we decided it wasn't just a medical thing, and you didn't want to make it gay liberation should not be about what doctors say, because then you're just giving credence to authoritative voice of a physician. It should be about the community, and that's why I was impressed with ACT UP, which was very active in those days, and it was the voice of the people and not the top or the people with titles. And I'm more into street activism. I mean, there are other people that get. I mean, I know I've been in rooms and negotiating with people, but I'm more into the street. One time, the UCI, there was some protest, and I actually offered to the library. They were going to take over the library, and I offered to be the in between with the protesters, but the library didn't care. They just shut the top floor, which is the management offices. They locked it up, so you couldn't go upstairs. And then they locked the library. They got the cops in and cleared the library. But I tried to negotiate, tried to step in and between the street people. By that time, it was because I was part of the library, but I wasn't in administration actually. I was just a line librarian, I guess. So I think there's need for both street people as well as people that actually go inside. But in that role, I was kind of thought I could do both. I could represent the voice of the protest. They were like graduate students and other students that were protesting. I forget what, actually over what, but they wanted. I mean, the library was like the center of campus, so they could make a point by sitting in the library.
I see. I guess I wanted to ask you about the Asian American movement, because this was happening at the time when obviously the gay liberation movement was happening. So, like, what was your relationship to the Asian American movement? And
I
also
thought
just
they were
like
all
the
very
identity?
straight. I thought that's why I wasn't even sure the gay awareness thing would get published. I thought they would just reject it. Yeah, but that was part of Project. I think it was part of Don's group, basement workshop. It's the same building, I think.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if Don was involved. I didn't know Don until later in Madison, probably in the 70s, late 70s. Probably I forget when that conference was. There was a Midwest Asian student conference that I drove from Ann Arbor to meet Don actually. So that was the first time I met him. But it's still to me, it is still very. I think of museums like this and other ones as being very anti-gay, typically, yeah. I mean, because they have not collected gay Asian stuff. When Jack Chen asked for a picture of my image of my magazine to put in your collection, it's the only thing there that's gay,
Yeah.
So I thought, I thought it was great, but they haven't really. I mean, I don't know what you've done, but the the East Coast one, they also are still very. I think of, I think part of it is because not enough people have come out who are older. Some have come out, JCL and other groups, but so maybe but with younger people here, it's more likely to open up. And what do you think about how has Mocha evolved since you've been here?
It definitely has. I mean, I
Oh
think
yeah,
with
yeah.
especially with Dennis and Ifan,
Oh yeah.
they're very I think conscious and
Yeah, yeah,
of that omission
yeah.
at
Yeah,
the museum.
yeah,
Like they definitely are having an impact on like the programming and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
exhibitions
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
general. Just
Oh,
like
good, good, good.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's improving, but I think it also needs.
Huh.
It's improving, but I also think it needs more.
Yeah, yeah. That's
It
good.
could be a lot better. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but at least we realize what the problem is.
But
There's
do you
like a
remember that NBC documentary on my magazine?
I don't know.
You know, because
No.
NBC, I thought you were in it because
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Remember?
Right, right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
you said you didn't know anything about that magazine.
Yeah, yeah.
But how
That
did
is
you?
true.
When did you find out about what it was about? When I was scheduled to speak or something?
No, I mean, maybe I learned about it
Before
like yeah before that. Like by that time, I already knew about it. But like I think I was referring to like when I first started at the museum. I didn't realize that
But on the
that
on the TV program, you didn't. You said you didn't know what it was about. The magazine.
yeah. But I think I was maybe referring to like when I first started.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah.
But anyway, it came across very bad. I thought. Yeah, because
Mm,
anyway, the director, the Korean American, right?
mm,
He wrote me, but I was on a Fulbright in Hong Kong
mm,
in 2017,
mm,
and all he asked me was what are the names of the people in the picture.
mm,
That's all. But he didn't ask me anything about the magazine.
mm.
Yeah, and I'm sure NBC didn't have money to fly him out to see me, and
Yeah.
so I was quite busy in Hong Kong, so I I just answered some emails, and I didn't know what he was doing, and so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it was a missed opportunity. I thought it was. I mean, it's just about point of view about his quest for something about this magazine, but he didn't do any research.
I see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, usually when you do a documentary, you do some research, but he didn't. He just asked people that were in a library using it.
Mm,
What do you think? That it's just a point of view thing, and to
mm,
me, it's very kind of simple, and
mm, mm.
yeah. So yeah, I was quite disappointed in it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
he didn't give anything about what the magazine was about or
Mm,
anything. Yeah.
mm,
So,
mm.
but
I mean, could you say like what the the magazine was about? Like in the beginning, like what was your um, kind of intention with it? Like, was the sort of goal that
well,
that?
I was trying to put out some research also to show that left kind of left activists were also dealing with homosexuality, and the one group that actually had position papers. We have several groups. There was a women's group from Seattle that actually a socialist group that had a good position on lesbianism
Hmm.
and actually took position papers. Because on the left like to have position papers,
Hmm.
and so they had actually one Freedom Socialist Party.
Hmm.
They call it Freedom Socialists, and the women who are active in it of different ethnicities. They had a position paper on, and the RU, the Revolutionary Union,
Hmm.
uh, was totally anti-gay, and then eventually they put out a position paper and
Hmm.
asked my opinion on it, and it was very, very, very bad.
Hmm.
So these are left groups they're traditional left groups, but the Freedom Socialist Party was the best position. I think they're in my magazine, in the gay insurgent. At the March on Washington, they had some
Hmm.
statement, I think.
Hmm.
But the RU, Revolutionary Union, they were the worst. And then they thought they were very good because they put out a paper, but it was too liberal. I thought it was a very liberal piece.
Yeah.
So, and then the Communist Party USA was, of course, very bad too. And in my chapter that is online, the one from the Asian American, the Slicing Silence chapter, I talk about even Angela Davis when she was at Ann Arbor giving a talk. I remember her as making fun of George Washington wearing kind of faggy shoes, and later she came out, you know. But at that time, she was part of the Communist Party USA that had a very party line against homosexuals, and so I think I had a cartoon in my magazine saying that communists cannot be gay or something, and so the straight line, I call it straight line. Communist was always very doctrinaire and against homosexuality. So I think my magazine was trying to provide evidence that there were activists who were left-leaning. And I use left in a very broad sense. I don't mean sectarian left. I mean more progressives, people that today they would, you know, a lot of my straight friends think the gay people are very liberal, but I don't use that term. I think liberal is not enough. Yeah.
Progressive is more.
Progressive, and also because gay liberation is more getting at the roots of things, and maybe liberal was supposed to be getting at the roots before, but they say liberal in contrast to right wing, yeah. But this whole distinction, of course, is lost to the current generation of gay activists. They don't know. They don't care, actually, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't affect them the same way. But in those days, it was very intense, you know, because you're fighting a war in Vietnam. Maybe now, if the war continues, they'll be radicalized. But also, a lot of students were subject to the draft, and they didn't want to go to the draft, and they didn't want to fight, and for the U.S. government, and so there was a lot of resistance. So that's a different context, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe if they don't need the draft, but if afterwards they started voluntary recruitment, so they didn't need a draft. But it may come back if the U.S. engages in more wars.
Right. Right. I wanted to just return back to because we're kind of coming up towards the end, but just the documents of Hong Kong that were declassified. You said you
Oh yeah, I
earlier
forgot to ask.
were really interested in that. What
Oh,
are
we
these
just happened to
documents?
search in the Michigan Library had a lot of deep research materials, but I think I was interested in future of Hong Kong, so I thought, wow, maybe they have something on that. So I just plugged in Hong Kong, and started browsing, and there was a microfiche, and it turns out I happened to luck out and got something on a fiche. I mean, there's thousands of fiche. I went back to look for it and almost couldn't find it because it didn't have an index. But it turns out there's an index that said Hong Kong, and you could look for a particular fiche. Of course, you cannot go through fiche one by one. I tried to do that and never worked.
Yeah.
But I finally, I mean, that was after I published the article. So when I wrote it, I was still in school, I think. And by the time I think they published, I forget what, 75, 76 or something, 78, they published. I had maybe just about graduated Ann Arbor, but I sent it to the Far Eastern Economic Review, which at that time was a small operation, and it was the main magazine for covering Asian current affairs, and it was very critical of the U.S. And so the funny thing is, it showed what the thought process was the week I was born, actually. In 1949, after Mao took over China, the National Security Council decided they discussed Hong Kong, whether they should cross the border. I mean, whether if China crosses the border and takes over Hong Kong, what they should do. And they decided they should just let the British handle it. Yeah. And actually there was a Roper poll during the war, Roper poll in 1946 or something, before the war, during the communist, not the World War II, but during, I think during World War II maybe, or before the, I think, yeah, at that time there was a poll that actually showed most people, most Americans thought that Hong Kong should go back to China, actually. So there's all these historical things that happen that people don't know about because they don't read. And no, today nobody reads, and so most students don't read books, So, and not everything is totally online,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
But I wanted just to find documents relating to Hong Kong,
Mm.
because when I eventually went to London for my research as undergrad, I did use the Public Records Office in England, so I looked up some documents. When I was at Michigan, at the library there's a Ford Library at Michigan. They actually have all these files from the last cable that Ambassador Graham, I think, sent from Vietnam. He said, "I'm going to burn this." He said, "Bye-bye." And the cable is there in the room, and I touched it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's amazing stuff they have there. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, even though it's the authority and it's a point of view from the state, archivists are now trying to collect movement stuff. That's why my files are still in Ann Arbor. There's some that contradict the state or contradict the administration. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's important. Yeah.
You said you were also like you went back before the umbrella movement and started to collect like the
Yeah, after I got a Fulbright after the umbrella movement, but before the later protests, and so I tried to encourage people to save stuff. Of course, I didn't realize there would be this crackdown.
Yeah.
Totally didn't realize, and the Chinese university had collected all this stuff of our umbrella movement, but in 2019 or 20 they decided. More recent, a few years ago, they decided it was too dangerous, and they sent it over to the Canada, the Hong Kong Library, the leaflets and the protest banners and all the artwork even. But my library, UC Irvine, has a lot of artwork from Hong Kong detention camps.
Oh wow.
That we have been able to preserve.
Oh.
So that's why because I'm at Irvine, I started researching what happened to Vietnamese in the detention camps in Hong Kong, and then what happened to them when they were put in camps in resettlement camps in the U.S. And when they came to California, it turns out that the majority of people in that camp were Sino-Vietnamese, so Chinese Vietnamese, and they didn't speak Vietnamese, they didn't speak English, they spoke Cantonese.
Oh.
And so the records I saw from the U.S. The State Department actually, and they showed that they requested Cantonese English dictionaries from the Hong Kong Consulate General, and at the time they couldn't find it. They said in 1978, they 70. When did the Vietnam War ended? 77 or 70?
77, I think.
77, yeah. So in the November 77 or something, there was a cable from the camp commander to Hong Kong consulate asking for more Cantonese dictionaries, and they said they couldn't find anything except published in 1948 by Maryknoll Sisters in New York. But they couldn't find anything in Hong Kong, a dictionary. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
So they couldn't find. They wanted hundreds of dictionaries for the people. The Vietnamese didn't speak English. And they didn't speak Vietnamese. They were Chinese Vietnamese. Yeah. Hoa. In Vietnam they call Hoa, HOA, means Chinese.
Chinese. Yeah.
Yeah. So that now the archives don't collect very much about Chinese Vietnamese. I don't know if you guys collect, but
we don't have much on that.
Yeah. Even my school that prides itself as Irvine prides itself as collecting all about Vietnamese Americans. They don't care about Chinese Vietnamese. They just have almost nothing about Chinese Vietnamese. Yeah. So I think there's all these problems with even community archives that get lots of grants and they get publicity about being it's this whole point about what I said about inclusion and exclusion. When you start to just include certain things and focus on it, you exclude other things.
Yeah.
So you can't include all Asian Americans because you can't collect everything, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, so you'd have to focus on something.
Yeah.
And before we never collected Korean American stuff that the library, and eventually now they call it Orange County Archives, not just Orange County Collection. So they try to expand it. But even Southeast Asian Archive, I was working in the library when somebody came in and said, "Do you have anything on Thai people?" And they don't.
Wow.
We don't collect. So it's the names are important.
Right.
You know, if you say Southeast Asian, then be Southeast Asian.
Right.
But you're actually lying when you're in your name. You don't. It's not as inclusive as you pretend to be.
Right. Right. Right.
Oh yeah. So that's a lesson for that we don't claim that you represent everybody when you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But I know you can't represent everybody. You know, there's no way. You
Right.
know, it's too many different groups.
right.
Yeah. So if you want to focus on Cantonese, you leave out other dialects or other languages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's I think a constant, tension.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tension. You know, so
Yeah.
it all depends on the board, who's on the board, how they raise the issue, or what the funding agencies would ask you. Do you have
Yeah.
anything on this? But so it's easy for them to just say LGBTQ, and then you say, oh, we have all these people on my board.
Right.
But maybe you don't do anything. You know,
Mm.
I still think you'd have to get to the roots of activism and community. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll
Okay.
leave it
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But thank you so much, Dan. That was
Yeah. Sorry.
no, it was
Rambling.
amazing.
Okay.